much with us to talk about Oscar and becoming an Oscar reviewer. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself in the chat, your name and your institution, maybe anything that you want us to know about your role, and maybe something interesting where you happen to be sitting. I'm here today in my kitchen, as I often am, and my house is chilly, even though the weather has gotten a little bit better here in central New York. I think we hit 70 degrees yesterday,
Hmm.
but it's chillier today for sure. So I still have my beret on. So I just want to say hi and again and welcome. If you are here to learn more about becoming an Oscar reviewer, then you're in the right place. And we're going to spend the next hour and a half chatting about Oscar and giving you an overview of Oscar. If you were here for the first session from in the spring that we did like a month ago or a month and a half ago, this webinar is similar. So whether you are faculty and interested in doing a self-assessment, or whether you're an instructional designer or someone else, or even faculty who want to be a peer reviewer, a peer course reviewer, or just assist with course reviews, then this session and the self-assessment session both can prepare you for that, and both feature in the full certification process. So the only real difference between this one, while I try and change it up a little bit so that it's not exactly the same stuff, but the thing that is mainly focused on towards the end of the presentation will be about how to prepare to give feedback to anyone you happen to be giving course review feedback to. So um, I'm seeing everybody popping into the chat, and I'm so happy to see everyone. There are folks from within SUNY, but there's also folks from outside of SUNY. I just see Leanne Smith's post from the UCLA Extension. So there's folks here, it looks like from all over. And I bet it's warm in California. um, but I just saw Cayuga and Finger Lakes and all kinds of folks from, oh, there's someone from Eugene, Oregon. Hey, and SUNY Niagara over, and Robert Becker. Hey, Rob. Jen Snyder from the CPD. There's all kinds of folks here. So I'm thrilled to have to be able to spend this time with you all. I'm going to close my chat for the moment. And so my co-pilot here is Erin Maney, and she's going to help me manage the chat. So if you have a question, please post it in the chat. I have a ton of stuff to talk with you about today. And so we're just going to dive right in. So first of all, so that you don't worry, all of these tabs that you see on my browser screen, we're going to go through all of those. And actually, some of them are hidden. I'm going to have to like scoot it over to the right so that you can see, when we get there. But this link, this bit.ly link, which is case sensitive, contains all of the information, all of the links, all of the everything that I'm going to show you. And in that, it's a Google folder. So if you go to that link, you'll get to this Google folder. And all of this is the stuff that I'm going to show you, including the PowerPoint presentation. So the one that we're looking at today is the reviewer PowerPoint. That's the PDF of the slides. Then there's also a page, like an actual Google Doc, that has all of the links and contact information. So all of the links that we're going to review today, including some bonus links down at the bottom. And you'll see here's the section for the feedback or providing feedback. So everything is here. So you don't have to worry about screenshotting or capturing stuff. You can also save the chat if you want, and that'll give you a bunch of information that gets posted in the chat. That's always a nice way to capture links as well. But they're all here. And so I want to get that out of the way right away. And then in terms of the agenda, we're going to do the introduction. We're going to look at the self-assessment PDF, but we're also going to look at the interactive rubric and the dashboard, because as course reviewers, you are going to want to potentially review a number of courses, potentially. And so the interactive online rubric it can facilitate that, help you with that. And then there's a dashboard, which is another OSCQR tool that we didn't go over in the first webinar, that if you are an instructional designer or managing a large number of course reviews, can help you to organize and sort of be on top of all of the different course reviews. So I'll show you that in a minute. And then we're going to have an overview of the tools and the resources, and you're going to learn how to access all of these tools and resources. And that's, pretty much our day today. So, just as a bit of a reminder and an overview of the history of OSCQR, in case you're interested, and by way of introduction, I always introduce myself as OSCQR's mom, because OSCQR was designed in my head probably all the way back to 1996. I started having visions and dreams about creating some sort of a wizard, I used to call it. And then quickly it became checklists, and then ultimately a rubric. We didn't actually start designing it until 2013, and then launched it in 2014, and then quickly, enhanced it and moved to different versions of it and started getting some awards. And then in 2016, we began our partnership with OLC on the rubric, and they have been offering it since then as their online course quality scorecard in their suite of scorecards. They've begun to develop their own scorecard for online course reviews, and it is based on OSCQR. OSCQR is a free and openly licensed tool, as you all may know, and so they now have launched their own online course quality rubric, but they continue to endorse OSCQR and provide it as a link off of their website, which I'll show you in a second. Most recently, we got an award for OSCQR in October 2024. When we added a set of standards that are related to COIL, which is the Center for Online International Learning, COIL, and added a set of standards to OSCQR related to virtual exchange. So I'll show you that in a second too. So we were very proud to get that award from WCET. It's a national association related to online education. And so, how I am wondering how many people in the room are familiar with OSCQR, or maybe we should count how many people are not familiar with OSCQR so that we can get a better sense. I have a video that is really a good overview of OSCQR that gives you, in like about 5 minutes, very succinctly, everything that OSCQR does, is meant to do, a little bit about how it works, and that it's not just a rubric, it's also tools and materials and resources and some overview information. So I'm wondering, Erin, do you see show of hands or anything that shows how many people are familiar with it?
I'm just starting to see a couple hands,
So
and I know that there are several SUNY people
who are
um,
familiar with it.
just
So
from people I've
if
worked
you
with.
want me to show the video, just say that, because
Yeah,
that'll help.
several are new to it.
Okay, all right.
So
So
it's up to you, and I will also put it in the chat.
Okay, so I just, I think the video is good. I think I'll show it just in case there's folks, who are really unfamiliar with Oscar. And so I'm just going to play it. I hope Aaron, tell me if the sound comes through properly. Can you hear it?
SUNY Online has developed an online course design rubric and process that addresses both the instructional design and accessibility of an online course that is openly licensed for anyone to use and adapt. The aim of the SUNY Online Course Quality Review, or OSCQR, rubric and process is to support continuous improvements to the quality and accessibility of online courses, while also providing a systematic approach to collect data across campuses, institutions, departments, and programs. This data can be used to inform faculty development and support large-scale online course design, review, and refresh efforts consistently. There are two components, the OSCQR process and the OSCQR rubric. The OSCQR process provides a framework and a dashboard to support a campus-tailored and scalable approach to improving the instructional design and accessibility of online or blended courses. There are three parts to the process. The online course review, using the OSCQR rubric, yields an action plan that informs the online course refresh process by targeting areas for improvements. After the identified areas have been refreshed and implemented, the learning review closes the continuous improvement loop to confirm the success of the changes made and the development of a plan for the next set of improvements. The dashboard is housed in Google Drive, which allows for free storage and collaboration. It automates campus-level review efforts and accommodates customized rubrics by managing all the rubrics for the institution. Built-in analytics track course review progress and can be used to identify online course design trends. Working with multi-institutional teams of SUNY Online instructional designers, librarians, distance learning directors, technologists, and accessibility experts, SUNY Online staff started with 20 years of SUNY Learning Network research-informed best online practices, the Chico rubric, Universal Learning Design Principles, the SUNY Office of General Counsel's Memorandum on Accessibility Considerations, and conducted a gap analysis with Quality Matters, iNicole, and Blackboard exemplary courses. The resulting 50 standards in the rubric target online instructional design and incorporate the community of inquiry model, the 7 principles of good practice in undergraduate education, the adult learner, Bloom's taxonomy, how people learn, and has been mapped to the SUNY Online fundamental and core competencies for online course design. OSCQR is the first online course quality rubric that specifically addresses the U.S. Department of Education regulation requirements for regular and substantive interaction, RSI, in the design of online courses. OSCQR can be leveraged by faculty, instructional designers, departments, and institutions to assist in planning, designing, improving, documenting, and implementing online courses and programs that are in compliance with RSI regulations. OSCQR standards guide online course design and refresh efforts, as well as faculty development activities to support RSI compliance in new online course development and review of existing online courses. OSCQR standards can be used by online faculty and instructional designers in faculty self-assessments, faculty training activities, resource materials, course reviews, as recommendations and standards to support and document how the online course meets the RSI requirements. The rubric is easy to use, flexible, non-evaluative, requires no storage space, can be customized, and can be implemented in a variety of ways. As part of an online faculty development and online course design professional development process, as an online faculty self-assessment, as part of an online course quality review process by online instructional designers, as a faculty peer review process, in a multidisciplinary collaborative team review model. The rubric also produces an action plan, allows for prioritization of standards, estimates amount of time to make improvements, offers suggestions and examples for improvements, accommodates modification and addition of standards. The 50 OSCQR rubric standards also integrate specific ways to make an online course accessible to students with disabilities and specific suggestions for ensuring regular and substantive interaction in online course design. OSCQR was adopted by the Online Learning Consortium in 2016 and is featured as the online course quality rubric in their suite of online quality scorecards. The SUNY Online OSCQR rubric is flexible, customizable, research-based, openly licensed for anyone to use and adapt, and nationally recognized. It is currently being used by 56 SUNY institutions and thousands of non-SUNY institutions and individuals. For more information on SUNY Online and OSCQR, visit oscqr.suny.edu.
Okay, so this gives a really good overview, and I like to share it with you all for several reasons. First, if you're not really familiar with OSCQR, that gives you a good overview. But second, when you're talking to your administrators or when you're talking to faculty about potentially initiating a course quality initiative or adopting or adapting OSCQR in some way, this is a really easy way to introduce folks to OSCQR and what it does, sort of as a preliminary introduction. And so if you go to the OSCQR website, for example, and go to About OSCQR, you'll see there's also a link to that video that I just showed. And so it's good to have in your toolkit when you are trying to promote the use of OSCQR or some OSCQR related activities with your institution and or your faculty. All right, I'm going to go back to our presentation and just reiterate that OSCQR is more than the rubric. It really involves, as I said in the video, it involves a process that supports developing a culture of online course quality, continuous improvement of the design of the course. And so the tools support that process that are part of OSCQR, and that includes the PDF rubric, the online interactive rubric, and the dashboard, as well as the website that contains all the materials and resources that support each of the standards and that explain each of the standards, and that you can use almost as a manual for each of the rubric standards. So it assumes this cyclical continuous improvement. You're not ever done. You create your course with the standards, you deliver your course, you learn from that delivery, you use the standards to evaluate, either self-assess or to take a look at what's working and what needs to be improved. It helps to guide and facilitate that. It's a framework that you can use to guide and facilitate that. Then you determine and prioritize what you want to improve for the next time it's delivered, and then you go through the process again. You deliver it, and then you either take your action plan that you've designed, that you developed from the first time you self-assessed, or that you got your course reviewed, or that you review a course, and then you can check to see what happened and look at your list for the things that you didn't cover that had been identified, and see if those still remain a priority to address for the next time. So it's very much an iterative process that continues throughout the life cycle of the course, and its iteration and its delivery and improvement. All right, so let me give you a tour of the tools and the resources. So if you go to oscqr.suny.edu, we're going to take a look at some of the features. So I already pointed out the About page, but every OSCQR is designed into sort of chunks of standards, and there's 6 of them: course overview and information, course technology and tools, design and layout, content and activities, interaction, and assessment and feedback. And you can see when I mouse over it, there's a number of standards that flow from each of these overarching categories. And so it's organized by category. And then within each category, there are a number of standards. And I'll give you sort of a tour of one of them. Let me go to the first one. So each standard has a description first. And they're numbered, so it's 1 to 50. Each standard has a little mini learning video, and these are our own community members. And actually, there's some external people in there as well, talking about what that standard is, why it's important, how they use it, how they implement it, what to look out for, tips and suggestions, that kind of stuff. And it's not, they're not hugely long, and it's a bunch of little snippets from different people. So it's very good if you're trying to get a handle on what a particular standard is. And you prefer, video, you can either read about it or you can check out the video. If the standard is associated in some way with RSI, then it'll have an RSI section on it. And it also, you'll see there's a little icon at the top that indicates that it has some connection to RSI. It either directly addresses RSI or it can be used to assist you to address RSI. Then all of the standards will have a refresh your course with these ideas, and there'll be some suggestions and potentially links and a bunch of ideas on how you could address this particular standard. There may be some examples and some additional information in this particular one, which is about including a welcome and getting started area or content for your course. One of the recommendations is around providing an introductory video. And so this particular standard includes some information about how to do video well, a bunch of links and resources you can see. And we also tie in, when we can, we tie the OSCQR standards into a repository designed by our friends at the University of Central Florida. And this is a TOPPR repository. Teaching Online Pedagogical Repository is what TOPPR stands for. And this was a Gates-funded project by UCF, by our friends at UCF. And it's a very good resource. I'll show you a little bit more about it in a minute. But when we can, if there are assets that are available in TOPPR that map directly to OSCQR standards, we put it right in there so that you can see and link to it to see what the TOPPR suggestions are. And then we always have some additional resources to explore if you're interested, and citations for scholarly work that supports the standard. And then we also provide on each standard the ability to provide some comments on a particular standard. And then if you have a practice or some sort of an approach that you want to share with us so that we can add it to our list of ideas for addressing the standard, then you can fill out this form, and we cyclically review that to make some additions to the recommendations and to the ideas on each of the standard pages. So that's kind of an overview of the format of each of the standards. We'll get to the Get OSCQR page in a minute, but that's where you actually can download either the PDF of the rubric or the interactive rubric. And we have additional resources and information about implementation. And there's also a change log so that you can see what has been improved and changed over time. There's a whole section on RSI, which I won't go through. I do a whole session on RSI, and that's one of the OSCQR webinars that we will be offering in spring and in fall. And there's also recordings of this if you happen to miss it. But there's a whole session workshop just on RSI. I had mentioned that we had the COIL, the award for the COIL standards that were recently added to OSCQR. And so you can take a look at those if you're interested. This is for online virtual exchange. And if you're not familiar with COIL, you can learn more about COIL by going to this section of the OSCQR rubric. And there's info about COIL and about what these standards are about. We have a section to acknowledge recognitions and awards and acknowledgements, both awards that OSCQR has won, but also awards that we just initiated to recognize and showcase really amazing implementations of OSCQR at different levels. So we have awards at the institutional level, at the program level, at the individual level, and next year we'll do one for research excellence. SUNY Adirondack won the institutional award this year. The program award was to either Buff State or UB, I can't remember. That was the program award. And then the individual award was won by an instructional designer from an institution outside of SUNY. And this just happened like last week. We just gave those awards out. So I don't have that stuff completely documented and published on the OSCQR website yet. But if you're looking for some really cool implementations of OSCQR, we'll have that on the website at some point soon. A lot of information about research related to OSCQR. So it's either OSCQR features in the research or in some way, I also collect research out there that supports each of the standards. And we put those in the citations as well as in this link roll here. And then we have community generated resources and assets. So it's an open community. This is an openly licensed, freely available tool. So folks from around the community, the OSCQR user community, sometimes develop things. And if you have and want to share that with me, I'll put it on this community page, and you can come here and take a look at some of the different things that have been added. I also keep track in this link roll here of folks that are using OSCQR that I become aware of, and it's certainly not exhaustive because it's me just Googling. And when I find something, I bookmark it and track it here in this OSCQR in use link roll. So again, if you are using OSCQR and you want to make sure that I track that, go ahead and send me a note, and I'll add your implementation to our link roll. And then you're here probably because you're interested in being trained in how to use OSCQR to do course reviews. And so we have information about the different OSCQR related webinars that we offer and the options for certification. And so that information is also on this website. So that's essentially a tour of the OSCQR website. What I want to do is make sure that you understand how to get OSCQR. And so right on that page on the OSCQR website, if you go to the Get OSCQR page, you'll see that you can link to the place where you can download it from OLC, and then you can also download it from us, and you can, there's the 4.0 version, which is the main version that's out there. And we have that in English and in Spanish. So if you have any colleagues that are, maybe, in other countries that might be interested, we have the rubric available in Spanish. And then 4.1 is the version of OSCQR that includes the COIL standards. So if you're doing COIL virtual exchange projects, that would be the one to download. And then we also have the ability on this Get OSCQR page for you to download the interactive rubric and the interactive dashboard. So let me just show you a couple of those resources. So this is the OLC website where you can come and download download the Oscar scorecard right from the OLC page, and it's free. You click on this and it'll ask you for your name and your state and that you're not a robot, and it immediately gives you the rubric. It downloads it immediately. And you can see, that we've partnered with them for many years. So on the rubric, and have been very grateful for that endorsement from OLC. And what you get is the PDF version of the rubric, and it's a fillable PDF. It is accessible PDF. You can see over here on the left, there's little icons for RSI. So those are the standards that are in some way affiliated with regular and substantive interaction, if that is something that you want to target or that you're interested in. As you can see, it's fillable. So you would just go in and fill it out. And the way that it works is you're looking at the standard to see, is it sufficiently present? Is it a minor revision? And the way that we codify that is a minor revision is something that would take you, no matter who you are, a half an hour or less to fix. And that might be different if you're an ID and very technically adept, and it might be different if you're a faculty person who's new to online and to the tools, right? It might vary a little bit, but this is intended to get your perspective as the reviewer of how long you think this is going to take. So you have some information to use with which to prioritize improvements. It's going to give you a sense of how long it's going to take, and then you can figure out how much time do you have, and that way you prioritize what you're going to fix for the next delivery of that course. So a moderate revision would be something that would take you a half hour to 2 hours, and a major revision would be something that might take you more than 2 hours. And there might be a standard or two here and there that's not applicable to your course, to your program, to your institution, whatever. So there's that option as well. And then for the action plan, once you decide, let's say it's a minor revision, you would type in what the action plan is. So maybe on this particular standard, it's missing something. And so you would say, add whatever it is, or consider this or that, or, see so-and-so for some assistance with X, Y, or Z. So you would just document what you are suggesting on that particular standard for the person to do. If it's a self-assessment, you're talking to yourself. If it's somebody else's course, you are making that recommendation or that suggestion or those ideas for them to improve that particular standard wherever it happens to sit. So you want to be clear and consistent and concise so that it's clear, this is in module 3, or this is at the beginning of the course in the first 2 weeks, whatever. You want to make sure that you're clear so the person who ends up getting this feedback understands what you are suggesting. And then, there's 50 standards, so you go through all of them, and then at the end, you can provide more narrative, more comprehensive, more, additional feedback. So this whole gray area here is intended for you to be able to provide, more detail about your recommendations. Now, if you want, as a reviewer, if you would like to use the interactive version of the rubric, not the PDF version, there's some additional features and benefits to using the interactive version of the rubric. And, I recommend that for self-assessment and for new faculty, the PDF is an easy entry into using Oscar, the rubric. It's a PDF, and they can download it independently, and they can interact with it independently. And, there's lots of different ways that institutions or instructional designers could leverage that self-assessment PDF. You can actually use it, in larger scale, but it's an easy entry for new faculty. For those who have more technology sort of experience and would like to leverage some of the additional features in the interactive version, you'd go to that Get Oscar page and you would download the interactive version of the rubric. And that will get you a form that you fill out, and it's just asking for your email and it's asking for the name of your course. That's it. And then you hit submit, and then you get some email that comes letting you know, what to do and how to get access to the rubric that gets generated for you. So behind the scenes, Oscar is generating you your own specific rubric. And it is essentially, I'm going to show it to you right now. What you get is essentially a Google spreadsheet. This is a very sophisticated Google spreadsheet with tons of code behind it that allow it to be interactive. And so it comes to you by email, the link to it, and then it belongs to you. I don't have access to it. No one in SUNY has access to it. It generates that link just for you, and then it lives in your Google Drive, and so it's yours. It's totally yours, and and this is what it looks like, or it could look like. This is a demo that I use, and it works essentially similarly to the way that the PDF works, but it has a couple of additional features. Like you can see, I can mouse over each of the standards, and it gives me some additional information about the standards. It's fillable, just like the PDF version, and that has the action plan area. And then over here, there's a link, and you can see I'm mousing over it, and and you can see that it's going to standard 1. So each one of them is going to go to the specific standards that it's associated with. This one will be standard 3, and this one will be standard 4, and this one, and so forth, right? Standard 5. So it's an easy navigation to get precisely where you want to get to, easily. So as you can see down here at the bottom, there are a number of tabs. So there's a tab on the course profile, so you can fill that out so that there's information that travels with the rubric about the course that this rubric is associated with in terms of course review. There's an instructional designer tab. So if you're in a model, if you're using a model that includes an instructional designer doing a review, that would be the tab for the instructional designer. If your model includes or also includes a faculty person doing a review, there's one for the faculty. If you are, labeling yourself just a reviewer, it could be anyone from, a peer instructor or someone else in your department, a student, a librarian, a technologist, any other type of reviewer, they would have that tab. So you can use this as an individual. So only the instructional designer could fill it out, or only the faculty could fill it out, or a group of people could fill it out. We designed Oscar intentionally so that it could accommodate any type of course review model that you might have. And there's lots of different kinds of models. SUNY's huge. There's 64 institutions, and every institution that uses Oscar, which I think almost all of them do, has a different model. They do it a little bit differently. So some do peer reviewers, and some do more multidisciplinary reviewers, some reviews, some do instructional designer-led reviews, and so forth. So there's all kinds of combinations of types. So that's why it has all of those tabs, but you don't have to use them all if you don't do that model. Now, the cool thing about the interactive version is that it generates an action plan, and you saw that in the video, right? So anything, when the instructional designer here said that they thought that the course Welcome and Getting Started could use a video and a course tour, their estimation is that this is a minor review that might take a half an hour. That's their estimation. And so when you go to the action plan, you can see that the time to fix is a quarter of an hour, and it's been determined that this is an important fix. And we've coded this to be either important or essential. I mean, anything that's in here is important, and some of them we've decided are essential. Because this is an openly licensed tool and it's customizable, if you don't agree with how we have determined the difference between importance and essential, you can change that and to your own institution or to your own department or to your own program, whatever you want. But we have a point of view, and that's the initial way that OSCQR is set up, but you can change it if you want to. So this aggregates everything for you, and presents you with those opportunities to make some prioritizations about what you choose to work on, depending on how long it's going to take and whether it's important or essential. And then here's the spot where there's additional feedback for the instructor or whoever is working on this course. In some of the models, there might be an instructional designer that's improving the course. So depending on whoever's improving the course, they get some overall narrative feedback. All right, so that's the interactive rubric. We also have, for larger scale implementations or course quality initiatives, we also have a dashboard. And so if you are the director of online learning, or you're the person who is in charge, or an instructional designer who's in charge with reviewing all the courses in a program, let's say, or all the courses in a department, or all the courses across the institution that are online and need to be reviewed and refreshed, the dashboard can help you to organize all of the reviews and to give you some information about those reviews, so you, as the manager of that process, can track it. So you would fill out the form to get your dashboard, same way as you got the rubric. It only asks for a little bit of information. And behind the scenes, Google or OSCQR generates a Google spreadsheet. So again, the dashboard is a very highly sophisticated spreadsheet that does a whole bunch of calculations and stuff in the background in addition to calculations. So you can actually generate rubrics from this dashboard. You can actually, you can see there's an OSCQR menu here, and you can add a course rubric. You can manage the templates. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do from the dashboard. And as you can see here in this demo that I have created several rubrics related to specific courses that I want my team, my imaginary team here, to review. So Art 200 is Introduction to Watercolors, and I generated that rubric using this dashboard, this menu item up here. I generated the rubric. I assigned it to an ID named Bill, and I can track how much of the review is complete based on what they have done with that rubric. And when you click, this actually gives you a hot link to the rubric that was generated for that particular course. And then you can go in and actually look at the review from this dashboard if there's something that you need to look at or take, check on. So in this first one, you can see that everybody, the instructional designer, the faculty person, and reviewer one, have all completed it. There's nothing left to fix in it, and it's time to push this out. My note is push this out tomorrow. You can see that in the Introduction to Online Teaching course, nobody has started anything yet. And that was assigned to Erin, and it might be that she just got it and nobody has really started it yet. But it could also be that just, I need to follow up because they haven't begun it yet, and I need to make sure that they get it done by a certain time. Same with French 2, 84% done by the instructor, 40% by the faculty, and 10% by the reviewer. So I get a sense of where this review is in terms of filling out the rubric. And every one of these courses has an associated rubric with it, and you can manage that from this dashboard. All right. If you're interested in this, the best way to get yourself set up to do these larger scale activities with the dashboard is to contact me so that I can help you to set your dashboard up and make sure to get you off to a good start on the use of it. There are some things that you need to know and do in order to have that work out well. And if you are planning to make any technical modifications to the rubric or to the dashboard, it would be good if you had somebody who is a Google developer to assist you with making those changes. As I mentioned, it is openly licensed, so you can do all kinds of stuff to it to make changes and customizations, but you kind of need to know what you're doing, and so you would need to have somebody who has Google application development expertise in order to assist you. All right, so let's go to, I already gave you the tour of the standards. So let's look at, let's actually start looking at, yep, we just did that. Let's start looking at how to apply some of these standards. I've pre-selected a bunch of the standards for us to review and to take a look at. The first standard is standard 3, which has to do with making sure that your online course has a course information area and a syllabus that makes the course expectations clear and findable. So I have a bunch of resources. So if you look at this page, you'll see there's a bunch of ideas and examples and resources, even a video, additional resources. There's a bunch of stuff here. So I have selected some of those to share with you during this webinar. And again, this one has to do with syllabus, right? And so one of the first resources that I want to share with you is that we have designed a syllabus that you can use either as a model or to check your own syllabus against, or as a template. This is a Google Doc, so you can actually go to, get access to this and go to File and then make copy, and then it will make a copy of it for you in your Google Drive that you then can edit and manage how, change, adapt, use however you would like to. So it's a template and it's a model. As a model, like I said, you can check to see how your current syllabus maps to some of the things that are present in this syllabus. And as you can see, every element that's on here maps to a Google standard. And so, that's the rationale for including the particular element in your syllabus. And I know different institutions have different processes, some of them very formal. So you may not be able to make random, changes or improvements to your, not random, but, you might have to go through some process to suggest any changes to your syllabi. But again, this can be used as a model to make some suggestions on how syllabi can be improved for online students, which might be different than syllabi for those who are in face-to-face instruction courses. So there are some arguments and some elements that that might be more specific to the modality. So some of the things that are unique in this model are there's a basic needs statement, there's a names and pronouns area for students, and that's also up here in the sort of like instructor information that's up here. There's also let me see. The other thing is, there's a whole section on regular and substantive interaction. This is a very easy way to demonstrate compliance. I would talk about this more in our session that we do on RSI, but I'm just pointing it out to you here that it's right here in the syllabus model, and it maps back to a number of OSCQR standards. In addition, the other thing I wanted to point out for you here is there is an AI statement. So regardless of what your stance is on AI, something should be in your syllabus related to what that stance is. So maybe it's not allowed, maybe it's encouraged, but under certain conditions, or maybe you require it also under certain conditions. You also want to make sure that students know and understand how to cite it if it's going to be used. So you want to make sure that you're telling students what your expectation is regarding the use of AI. If you don't tell them, they won't know. And this is a good example of how you might be able to incorporate that into your syllabus. In addition, there's a bunch of things here regarding campus policies and processes, and maybe your institution does a really amazing job of orienting your online students to all of this stuff that's specific to them, and maybe all the student supports are very well documented with links that are navigable and findable, that are easy for the students, the fully online students, to find, but maybe not. So if not, then it's a good idea to have that information in your syllabus or detailed in your online course in some manner. So that's why this is here. For those campuses that do a really good job of this, you can just highlight this and delete it. Right. For those who don't, whether at the campus level or at the faculty level or departmental level, whatever, you want to consider, how does an online student find out what the withdrawal date and policy date, the drop date policy is? How do they find that? We did focus groups with students and coming up with this syllabus, and they fully online students talked about having a lot of difficulty, some of them, in finding out some of this information because it wasn't clear. Or they would go to the tutoring website they were sent to only to find that it's open for drop-ins, from 9 to 4 p.m. in person. So the online student gets very confused at that point. So it's important that it be specific to the online students and that they can quickly and easily find that information. All right, let's plow forward here. Some more information related to this particular standard has to do with providing course information. So we just talked about the syllabus, and everything in the kitchen sink is usually in the syllabus, but sometimes not. So, if you have very strict processes regarding what can be put into the syllabus and it's not specific to your online students, you might want to consider adding some additional course information to your online course documents that help online students be specifically oriented to the information that is highly important and relevant to them, so that they can begin to succeed, so that they can think that they can succeed in your course. They want to know how to contact you. They want to know how they're going to be evaluated. They want to know what your expectations are. They certainly want to know what the course schedule is, right? And so each one of these potential documents, and you have a copy of the URL to this page, so you can poke around and see some examples. Each one of these contains an example, and then it also is, each section is associated with an OSCQR standard, so you can then check that out as well. These are things that you could consider in terms of specific documents that you have at the front end of your online course. All right, so I found this resource years ago. I don't remember what year it was exactly, but it's from a study out of Kent State by Bethany Simunich, and she's now with Quality Matters. And this paper blew my mind because they did eye tracking, an eye tracking study on new fully online students who were entering a course, during the first few days or weeks of the course, and they wrapped a whole research study around it, and the findings were mind-blowing to me. First, they coined the term findability, and it has to do with navigability of the online environment, the online course environment. And if they couldn't find something within seconds, like it really is literally, seconds, if they couldn't find something, it had dramatic consequences and implications, and they found the satisfaction of the student decreased, the outcomes for the students also decreased, and one of the things they tied it to was the sense of self-efficacy. So the sense that the student believes in themselves, that they're able to succeed in your course, plummets if they can't find something like how they're going to be evaluated or how to contact you or whatever. And this happens at the beginning of a course. So this issue of findability is super, super important. The other thing that blew my mind, which really blew my mind, is that the student's perception of the qualifications of the instructor to teach the course also went down the more time that they spent trying to find something. So they not only came away with the belief that they can't succeed, that they must be stupid or, whatever, they just can't figure it out. They don't believe in themselves to succeed. They also have opinions about the qualifications of the instructor. So findability is super, super important in online environments. And if you're interested, the link to the citation is in the resources, and you can read this paper if you're interested. I've seen them present on this paper many times, and it's very, very, very interesting. All right, so let's look at standard number 9. We're in the course overview and information section of the standards. Remember, there were 6 sections of types of standards. We're still in course overview and information. And in standard 9 has to do with course objectives being clearly defined and measurable and aligned with the activities and assessments. And so I've highlighted a number of resources for you to take a look at. And one of the things that new online instructors, as well as those who've been doing it for a while, experience is really not completely understanding how much is enough and how much is too much to have in their online course. And so some of these resources are intended to help instructional designers and faculty calculate time on task. And if you're a course reviewer, you want to understand a course, take a look at the course in terms of the amount of stuff that the instructor is asking the student to do, and to have a little bit of a sense of whether or not it's realistic and reasonable. So these resources are intended to assist with that. And if you can see what I have highlighted here, in a typical undergraduate course, that's 15 weeks long, the assumption is that you're going to be doing around 135 total hours of work, both online and offline, and that's going to reduce down to about 9 hours of work per week in a 3-credit course. So there's a bunch of information here. Again, these are guidelines. It's not set in stone, but it's something to help give you some sense of this issue. And then the other resource that I have sort of to use with that information is this really cool workload estimator by Wake Forest University. And so you can come to this workload estimator and plug in information about your particular course. How many weeks is it? How many pages per week are you asking them to read? What's the density? How many new concepts are there? What's the purpose? All of this information, you just fill it out based on your particular course, and then you can come here to see essentially what it's telling you is 15 hours per week, and 12 of those are independent, and 3 of those are with some sort of contact. So, and you can see, like, if I change this in terms of hours, oops, wait, let me scroll down so you can see it. It's dynamic. So if I move this, I can see how that affects and impacts the estimates, the workload estimates. And then if we go back to the page here, for a 3-week course for a 3-credit course that's 15 weeks, we're aiming for about 9 hours per week. And right now, the way I have this estimated, it's about 15 hours per week. So I have to figure out, how to make this, realistic from the student perspective. And so this, again, not set in stone, but it gives you some ideas and some ways to begin to think about the amount of work that you're asking the learners to do in your course. And as a reviewer, you would be checking to see, does this seem reasonable in terms of what the instructor's asking the students to accomplish within the time frame. And of course, there's just 24 hours in a day, right? You have to be able to do that and other courses and have a life, and so you need to have some parameters to try and understand that. All right, let's go on to what learning activities are, and the whole point of developing your online course is to present content, to have objectives, to design activities for the learners to do with the content, with each other independently, and then to be able to provide them feedback on that and to assess what they've learned. And so in order to do that in an online course, one needs to reconceptualize the design of their learning activities, given the options and limitations of the online teaching and learning environment. And so there's a lot of good information that we know about how people can teach and learn well online. We know a lot about that today. There's a lot of research, and there are a lot of examples out there to help us to understand how to do that most effectively, most efficiently. So some of the resources that I have here for you involve initially how to write your learning objectives and how to look at your learning objectives through that lens when you're thinking about your online course, and the importance of alignment between the objectives, the content, the activities, and the assessments are super important and need to be super clear. I mean, I think that's true of any instruction, frankly, but in an online environment where that's all they have to look at is the screen and what you've written or what you've given them through the computer, through whatever interface they're looking at, it's like really, really important. They don't have anyone to ask immediately, right? So what I like, this is a resource I found a long time ago by this guy, Carl Wenning, who's a physicist. And he wrote this, and I just think it's really good. He has these examples of poor objectives and better objectives. And I think that, it's not always intuitive, right? How to carefully craft an objective, and they may be there and have been there for some time, and they may have been the same ones that were used in the face-to-face instruction, but you want to stay away from words like know and understand and use better terms like write and provide. So I like this. Solve is another one that's a good one. I like this resource because it has those two good examples. In addition to that, I want to share with you information about Bloom's taxonomy, and this resource is from I can't remember who it's from, Illinois State. I can't remember exactly. The link to it is available. And so this Bloom's talks about the knowledge dimension and going from concrete knowledge to abstract knowledge, and really understanding that trajectory from factual, conceptual, procedural to metacognition. And then also the cognitive processes, which involve remembering things, understanding things, applying, analyzing, higher order learning skills like analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And so this is a good way to start thinking about your objectives. And if you have them all at the understand level, right, or at the factual level, and at the remember level, then you might want to think, okay, how do I incrementally scaffold the student to move further on those dimensions, on the both knowledge and the cognitive dimensions. So this resource here is intended to help you kind of think that through with your own objectives. And if you're a reviewer, you want to make sure to look at how are those objectives stated. And if you have a lot of, the student will know and the student will understand, one of your recommendations would be you might want to think about how you might improve these objectives to reflect, the broader trajectory from both those cognitive and knowledge dimensions. So one of the resources that I have that you can share with faculty, or if you're an instructional designer that you can use, is this thing from ASU, this Learning Objectives Builder from ASU. And so let's say we want to build that gives you information on each of these dimensions. So let's say we want to go to the create level, and we want to create. And so by the end of this course module lesson, you will be able to create, and then you would type in what you want them to create. And I have said in here, I want them to create a presentation in the format of their choice. They can do it in text, creative writing, a poem, a song, a story, a drawing, etc. And it needs to be able to demonstrate how you would apply the theory of relativity. So this, I just made this up. So that's what I want them to create, and then I can actually copy it and use this as my objective. So this is a way to help you to formulate an objective if you need, if you want to use a generator, an objective generator. You can also build these, yourself, and these are. This is a Bloom's taxonomy verb thing. So at the creating level, these are all the verbs you would use: evaluating, analyzing, applying. So it just helps you visualize all the different verbs that are associated with the different levels in Bloom's. I like this one because it's got cute owls and it's colorful. If you don't like colorful stuff and cute owls, there's this one that's just plain text and similar. I mean, it's not the exact same verbs. So this is another list of verbs that you could take a look at and see how they might apply to you and to your learning objectives. All right. And you can also, look at it as a reviewer, see what are the verbs that they're using, what levels of Bloom's they're targeting, and see, check to see if there are, if there's diversity and variety there. This is another resource by that same institution that provides some additional information on the level of thinking and the action verbs. It gives some sample statements and some activities and outcomes that would be associated with that. So it's just additional examples to help you, get your head around how to do this, and examples of things that you can take a look at and even potentially adapt, right? So this is a really good resource to incorporate as you work on this in your own instruction, or as you take a look at courses that you're reviewing. All right, so the next piece here, we're going to move on to design and layout. And design and layout, a lot of the standards in design and layout have to do with accessibility. And so we're going to look at this first one is standard 16, which has to do with having a logical and consistent, easy to navigate course. So some of the resources that I selected for you have to do with creating a consistent modular structure. And so you want to take a look as a reviewer at the course. How many modules are there? Are there 32 modules? That's not a good practice. I mean, that what we know in terms of effectiveness and both faculty and student satisfaction and learning is that the magic number is 7 plus or minus 2 in terms of content modules in an online course. More than 9 and satisfaction and learning, perception of learning go down. Less than 5. satisfaction and perception of learning also go down. And that is for students as well as faculty. So this is about chunking. It's an instructional design concept. I would recommend that you talk to your instructional designer if you have access to instructional designers. But if you have 35, content areas, what you want to do is chunk those 35 content areas into 7 or 9 broad chunks in which you can, nest the numbers of sub-content modules or sections or content that you have. So you want to think about that when you're reviewing a course. There might be some very, reasonable reasons why there are 35 modules. Like, let's say instead of 35, let's say 15 or 16. That's the number of weeks of the course, and that's a reasonable assumption to make, that you do it based on the weeks of the course. What I would suggest is that makes much more sense for a hybrid course or for a high flex course, or courses where the week is important in some way, right? For a fully online course, I would recommend and talk through with the instructor or talk through myself, if I was doing a self-assessment, is it really important that the week be laid out like that? It's typically in a fully online course, you may have deadlines every week, but you also may have activities that could span 2 weeks, like a discussion, for example, might take place over the course of 2 weeks. And so you want to consider the numbers of content modules that you present. The other thing I would say about modules and content within a course is how you label them. So if you have a course and you open it up and it says week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, whatever, or it says module 1, module 2, module 3, whatever, however many there are, whether they, are using that 7 plus or minus 2 thing, if you're missing an opportunity to convey content about the information about the content, about the discipline, about what is being studied, by not leveraging the labels and titles of things. So instead of just quiz 1 or instead of discussion 1, give it a contextual title so that at a glance from the outline view of the course, the student can begin to get some advanced organizers for the content so that they can see from this professor's perspective, this is how they have organized this disciplinary content or this instructional content. And you get to start to have a sense of the instructor's personality, the instructor's perspective, the information about the content itself. It may be sequenced, it may be related to, it can be related to all different kinds of things. So use the labels of things. Don't miss the opportunity to label things in ways that provide those advanced organizers for students. Okay, and then, be consistent, right? You can't call it module 1 and then refer to it as something else, because the students are very literal and they'll go looking for module 1 if you call it module 1. And if it's not there, they're going to be very confused. So, if you call it, whatever you call it, be consistent and systematic about referring to it in that manner. And that, what I recommend is label it, number it, so you can easily, as the designer of the course, refer to the number of it, but also give it a contextual title. So it would be, module 1 or 1, and then whatever the label is. All right, so let's go to the next thing that I have for you. We've created a whole bunch of templates in Brightspace, but we also have provided them in common cartridges. So no matter what type of learning management system you use, you can actually download the common cartridge for each of these templates. I'll open up the asynchronous one, and you'll see there's a zip file for the Brightspace template, and then there's the common cartridge template. And so you can take these templates and import them into your learning management system if you're interested in having an OSCQR informed design, templated design for a course. And this is the wraparound. There's no content in there that's academic. It's just a wraparound for findability and for navigation, and it's all OSCQR informed. I've provided a bunch of additional documentation like the Oscar alignment document and the asynchronous template guide. And there's that for all of the different modalities. And, we have asynchronous, blended, high flex. There's even one for face-to-face. There's some for non-credit courses. So, and then there's additional documentation that you can take a look at to better understand some of the specifics around the templates and the use of the templates and so forth. The alignment documents help you to understand what stuff is in the template and how it maps to Oscar, and some specific information about those particular areas. I'll show you quickly what it looks like in Brightspace just so that you can see. Sorry, I gotta log in again. So this is the asynchronous template that I'm showing you, and you can see it's got all of the, those welcome start here information, and it's all templated, meaning, you can delete stuff, you can modify stuff, you can add stuff. It's just a template, but it starts quick. It can be used to quick start faculty into a very an effective course design that's primarily pedagogically task-based. So you can take a look at it if you're an instructional designer. If you're faculty, you can also take a look and see if it's something that you would want to ask your instructional designers about potentially implementing or using things out of it that you might incorporate into your own course design, regardless of what learning management system you use. So it's just there for you, to take a look at if you're interested. So again, another one in design and layout this one has to do with accessibility, and really making sure that you're paying attention to accessibility as you design courses and as you review them. So, take a look at, are the images alt tagged? Are the tables set up for and optimized for accessibility? I have some information that you can use to take a look at information around tables, for example. And I have this cool example. I'm going to play it.
Table with 8 columns and 5 rows. Fall term freshman sophomore junior senior post back non-dash degree total 2007 42 40 32 18 34 18 46 30.
It's just reading. This table was not optimized for accessibility, and so what the reader does is it just reads it across. There's no way that somebody who's listening to this is going to be able to make sense out of that. So if you optimize this for screen readers, then it will read the columns down and then make it a little bit easier for the person to understand what it is what the information is that's being presented in that table. So just want to make sure that you, as a reviewer, take a look at that and keep in mind, some of the accessibility issues that are that you want to make sure are being attended to. PDFs are another one. So tables, PDFs, and images are ones that stand out as really needing to make sure as a reviewer that you are thinking about that you're thinking about the accessibility of those elements, especially in the design and content section of the Oscar review. So now moving on to content and activities, we have Standard 29, which talks about making sure that the course has a variety of engaging resources to present content and support learning and collaboration and to facilitate interaction with the instructor. So so you're going to be looking for those elements. In terms of resources that I pulled out for you to take a look at, I want to make sure that you think about, so we already talked about the objectives. right? And making sure that those are well designed. So you want to align content with those objectives, which we talked about some. And now what you want to make sure to do is, align the activities and the interaction and collaborations between students with those, with that content and with those objectives. So thinking about active learning, thinking about different types of instructional activities, thinking about how you would reconceptualize stuff that you might typically want to do in a face-to-face classroom. And you can't just, you can't just do it online necessarily and have it be effective or efficient. You want to reconceptualize it in some way. There's lots of ways to do all kinds of things that you might typically want to do in a face-to-face classroom, but you're going to have to modify it and reconceptualize it for the online environment. This University of Illinois resource I love because it lists things that you might typically want to do, like how do you do an art project online? How do you do a debate? How do you do an interview online? I chose for today, I chose role play. How would you do a role playing activity? Maybe you do that in a classroom as a small group activity or a whole class activity, but how would you do that in an online classroom and still achieve the objectives that you are hoping that you would if you were doing that activity in some other modality? What I love about this resource is it explains it all, and then it gives you, some recommendations and indications and suggestions depending on whether the activity is taking place in a synchronous environment or in an asynchronous environment. And then it suggests learning assessments and teaching strategies and how you would accommodate things and what the timeline is and so forth. So it does that for every one of those types of learning activities that are listed here. So I love this resource because, at the very least, whether you're a reviewer or an instructional designer or a faculty person, looking at a course that could be served with doing one of these activities better, or maybe they're not doing it and it might be some way to achieve whatever their objective is in this particular way. It'd be a recommendation you could make for them to consider. All right, so we did the role playing. Interaction. So here's the topper resource that I mentioned to you earlier at the outset. This is the University of Central Florida repository, the teaching online repository. And I just typed in here interaction, or I went to the interaction area, the way that it's organized. And I did a search for role, and it looks like there are three ways to that they list for experimenting with role playing. And in this one, it's increasing student engagement in online discussions. And then the other one I found had to do with engaging adult learners with course-long role play. One of the first courses that I supported, and this was in 1994, delivered in 1995, so I've been doing this for some time now, was a organizational management course, and we did a role play activity, and every student was assigned a role in a company, and then they carried out scenarios based on those roles. And this was a fully asynchronous course, so even role plays you could do. I have another resource here that I wrote some time ago that I used to call 50 Ways to Leave Your Lecture, but it's alternatives to lecture essentially. And so you can see conduct an interview, integrate a guest speaker, promote student-led discussion, have students do summaries of things, you can pop a quiz. You can do brainstorming activities, you can build consensus, you can do case studies or case histories, you can do chain problems or chain stories or poems by, having each student build on the last student, have them each add a word or add a aspect of a problem solution or design a problem. There's lots of different ideas here. So I'll leave this here for you to take a look at your leisure and see if you can find some activity that might help you address a particular objective that you have. And if you're a reviewer, you want to be thinking about what recommendations could you have for the person whose course you're reviewing that would help them achieve whatever their goal is, and based on the content that they have, what could they leverage to improve that or to do that. So lots of ideas for you. Also in the content and activities area, I have developing higher order thinking and problem solving skills. Again, this is related to Bloom's taxonomy, and you want to be looking at that when you're looking at the course in terms of a review. And so I like this visual because you can really, look, if you're looking at the apply cognitive dimension and the procedural knowledge dimension, the example is carry out pH tests of water samples, right? So it helps you to sort of understand with an example what that might look like. If you want it at the analyze level and at the metacognition level, you want people to self-assess. Maybe it says deconstruct one's biases, but you have them do some reflective activities, perhaps on biases. At the evaluate level and at the conceptual level, we have determine relevance of results. So they have some study that they're looking at, and you want that, or they have developed an analysis, and now you want them to talk about the relevance of those results. And then at the create level and at the factual level, you might have them generate a log of daily activities, and that hits that at the create cognitive level and at the factual knowledge dimension level. So it helps. It's I like the visual. It's colorful and and kind of interactive. So to help you begin to really be able to apply and think about when you're looking at objectives, when you're looking at activities, are they really doing things at these different levels? This Oregon State University does a really amazing job with a lot of their online teaching resources, and I wanted to share this one that I just came across. It's relatively new, that incorporates generative AI into this Bloom's taxonomy matrix. And so I'm just going to leave this here for you to consider. I think it's a good resource to take a look at. Of course, it's not exhaustive, and there's lots that we could talk about in terms of AI and course design and activities and assessment, but I just wanted to share this with you since we were talking about Bloom's, and they just came out with this resource that addresses AI in terms of Bloom's taxonomy. All right, so what's the next one here? This is an example of a metacognitive blogging activity that I do in my own instruction. So I'm going to leave this for you here too. I talk about why I do it, and my main 3 objectives for doing it, and then I talk about what the value of it is, of the activity is for students. And then I talk about how I do it. And then I give actual prompts for each of the different activities, metacognitive journaling or blogging activities that I have the students do. And so you can take a look at some of my prompts if you're interested in experimenting at that metacognition level. This is one example. I mean, there's a million ways to do this, but this is one example from my own online instruction. All right, and then let's
Alex,
look.
this is Erin. Hi, we have about 2 minutes, so I just wanted to give you that heads up so you can strategically plan the end of the agenda.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I'm not going to talk about the regular and substantive interaction piece because I do a whole webinar on that. So just know that we have a whole section on regular and substantive interaction, and it has absolutely nothing to do with quality. in an online course. You need to, as a reviewer, look at that to make sure that you see it present there so that you can, document and give feedback on, how to improve that in a course. But if you're interested in that, come back for the RSI session that we do. And then the next one I want to talk about is opportunities for interaction with students. So we're now moved into the interaction section of OSCQR standards. And so cooperative and group work, if you've taught online before, no doubt you have attempted to do some group activities. And if if you're looking at a course that has group activities, you want to make sure to think about how they are designed and how they might be improved for efficiency and effectiveness and success. And you can look at some of the information that I have posted here that might affect that. So group size, preparedness, how do they form groups? Are the instructions clear? Do they have the skills to do that? Do you scaffold them with lower stakes activities to help build those skills of collaborative group work and so forth? So there's a lot to improve in online group work often. So you want to take a look at that and make sure that you're giving some good feedback on how that could be improved. Active learning is also really something that you want to consider and suggest if you're doing course reviews. So really making sure that the activities are not all passive, that you're really asking the students to engage and interact and apply things so that they can be actively involved in constructing their knowledge. And so I have a bunch of resources and ideas. I like this resource because it's really short and quick and easy to sort of consume and digest. And so something to look at if you want to make sure to give some suggestions on making activities more active, less passive, if that's what you're observing. Finally, we've got a couple on assessment. Making sure that the assessments are authentic. And I have some resources for you on doing that and some suggestions. Rubrics here are alternative types of assessment. So you want to think about, you've designed good objectives, you have content that's been presented and it's engaging and effective, and you have designed activities that are active and collaborative and interactive. So how are you going to assess that? And so here are a bunch of different ways that you could assess. And then rubrics are a really, really good resource. I recommend that you see your instructional designer to help you with that. But I also have a bunch of resources for you on rubrics. And if you are reviewing a course, one of the recommendations you can make if you don't see them in there is for the instructor to consider developing rubrics associated with all of their assignments. And then I have additional suggestions related to assessment on how to improve academic integrity and support academic honesty in your students, and how you can design activities to scaffold that, right? To make sure that the students have opportunities to understand what your expectations are, and to design activities that are going to help them demonstrate their thinking and their learning in a way that is authentic for the environment. And this is a whole resource. I do a whole session on this that I'll invite you to come back to at some point. I don't know if I'm doing it this semester, but it's on how instructors can support success in their learners, and there's lots of different things that instructors can do, and there's lots of different behaviors that effective and successful online learners can do that we've observed. These are some of their attributes, but then instructors can support the development in those for whom these skills are emerging, these self-regulated learning skills are emerging, and there's stuff that instructors can do to scaffold and support that. And if you scroll here if you see these little plus signs, you can open and close these to take a look at some of those behaviors and some of those suggestions. So as you're reviewing a course, you want to make sure that you're thinking about how is the instructor scaffolding that in their learners, and how are they making sure that they're not assuming things about learners that they could be supporting the development of in their learners. The last one has to do with descriptive feedback and getting that information from your learners, and making sure that you give them the opportunity to give you feedback. And it's not a course evaluation, and it's not just asking them, what did you like about the course? It's a little deeper. It's like, what did you learn, and how do you know you learned it? And what helped or hindered your learning? So you ask them to dig a little bit deeper into the feedback that they're giving you. And then these are a couple of different ways that I end a class. So part of getting feedback from the student is also creating culminating activities at the end of a course, not to forget that you created learning community, and you want to sort of wrap that in a way that makes the learning experience come to an end more fully. And one of the ways I do it is I create videos for my students to demonstrate how I got to know them as people and also students, but as people first. And you can take a look at the video if you want. I also do a Padlet that asks my current students to give feedback to my future students. So it's an activity at the end of my course that I then start the next course with, so that students can take a look at feedback from other students who have taken the class, and get some insights from them and suggestions and feedback from them on how to deal with the course. Now, the final thing that I wanted to talk about just briefly, and the links are in the document, is how to give feedback and how to think about doing the course review. And so when you're charged with, when you're engaged in giving feedback, OSCQR, of course, is a framework that can help you go through those different categories of information, and they're already kind of designed into an order, right? You're taking a look at course information and welcome stuff first, and you go all the way from that all the way down to feedback, which sort of follows the life cycle of a course. So here is some information on, starting with the objectives, looking at what content is presented, looking at how the activities are designed, what the assignments are, how you're planning to give feedback, and how your expectations are stated and whether or not they're clear, how you build trust and community. Is there consistency? Do they use rubrics? A lot of the stuff that I've been talking about during this session. And so I've also provided some examples of some course reviews that I've done. Now, this is me, my personality, and my narrative feedback. It's not the whole rubric, it's just the narrative feedback I provided for some instructors. So I'm not saying do it like that and do it how I do it. It's just examples of how one person has done some course reviews. Then the next thing I wanted to share is the warm and cool feedback. And so you start off with warm feedback and telling them, giving them, and this is how you do it with students too, helping them, believe that, they're doing things well, being supportive, being appreciative. That's your warm feedback. So give some of that first. And then you give some of the recommendations that you might have for improvements in a way that says it, you can't just say, this is not right, or, this is bad, or whatever. You have to say it in ways that are going to be received in a way that will help them to consider the possibility of making a change. And so you can talk about wondering, you can talk about possibilities, that you can talk about example, perhaps something, and you want it to be constructive. You may have some criticisms. You may, show some evidence that, this really should be done in a different way, and they should consider perhaps doing some things in a little bit of a different way. So this whole document gives you some thoughts about and some words of how to approach giving the feedback. So I'll just leave that there with you. I think I'm done, Erin, and I know I'm a little over time. But if folks have stayed and want to chat a little bit about with any questions they have, I would love to entertain any questions.